Seth and I sat down to play a game of Incantris, and so we want to show it to you in this video. So this is a two-player game of Incantris. Seth is going to be playing the purple team. I'm playing the gray team. We're also going to be playing the shifting arena scenario, which is a really neat scenario because it takes advantage of the modular nature of the tiles that make up the Incantris battlefield. So, in order to decide who goes first, we both pick up all of the casting dice and we try to roll as many green wands as possible. Seth rolls 4, I roll 3, so Seth is going to be taking the first turn. On a turn, you get to activate one of your wizards. Seth chooses to activate his sorceress and has her cast the spell Spell Totem. No roll is required to cast this spell. This spell is going to allow the sorceress to place a spell totem on one of the hexes on the board, and then she will be able to cast spells on future turns as if she is standing in that hex. When activated, a wizard may either cast a spell and then move, or move and then cast a spell. So now that she has cast the spell, Seth moves her to a more defensive position. Now it's my turn. I choose to activate my sorcerer. My sorcerer casts the spell Guardian Hydra. This is a spell that allows the sorcerer to conjure a magical hydra to place on the board. This Hydra has a direct damage spell that it can cast against enemy wizards on future turns. Then I also move the Sorcerer to a more defensive position. Notice that I turn my Sorcerer's turn token over to indicate that he has already been activated this round. Now it's Seth's turn again, and he may activate another wizard. Seth chooses to activate the Shadow Weaver and has him move to a new position. Then the Shadow Weaver casts the spell Gloom Strike against my Sorcerer. To cast the spell, Seth rolls 2 casting dice, trying to roll as many green wands as possible, and gets to add 1 to the number of wands that he rolled. Now, the Shadow Weaver uses the astral power source to cast his spells, so I check to see how well the Sorcerer wards against the astral power source, and against the astral power source he wards with 2d. But this time I will try to roll purple wards to negate the green wands rolled against me. I roll no wards, and so my Sorcerer takes 3 life points of damage. I use the slider on the side of the Sorcerer's Wizard reference board to track the damage that he's taken. Now it's my turn again, and I choose to activate my Druid. The Druid's special ability allows her to move over the streams as if they were open ground. She moves forward by the Hydra. She's going to try to cast Entangle on the Shadow Weaver. To do this, she rolls 3 casting dice, trying to roll as many wands as possible. I roll 2 wands. The Druid also uses the astral power source, and so the Shadow Weaver wards against her magic with 2 dice. Because the Druid is able to score at least 1 hit on the Shadow Weaver, the spell takes effect. The entanglement marker is placed beneath the Shadow Weaver, and he will be reduced to only 2 movement points, as long as the spell continues to affect him. I flip over the Druid's turn token to indicate that the Druid has also moved this round. Now it's Seth's turn, and the only wizard that he has remaining to activate this round is his Shaman. So the Shaman moves forward and then attempts to cast Primal Reach against my Druid. That spell has 1 plus 2 casting dice, for a total of 2 wands against the Druid. The Shaman uses the spiritual power source, and the Druid wards against that using 2 dice. But again, I fail to roll any wards, and the Druid sustains 2 life points worth of damage. Plus, the spell allows the Shaman to move the targeted wizard 1 hex for each point of damage that he was able to inflict. So the Shaman chooses to hurl the Druid backward by 2 spaces. Now it's my turn, and the only wizard that has not been activated this round on my side is the Arcane Knight, and so I choose to move her, trying to position her for advantage in future rounds. This is now the end of the first round, and the first thing we do is flip over all of our wizard turn tokens so we can activate them all again next round. And also, because we are playing the shifting arena scenario, we have to move one of the tiles. So we take Seth's starting tile, and it shifts next to my starting tile. This is a really cool part of this scenario, and now it's time to begin round 2. It's now Seth's turn, and he chooses to activate his Shaman this round. He moves the Shaman up to my Arcane Knight. He casts Eagle Talon against the Arcane Knight. That spell inflicts 3 plus 2 damage, so Seth rolls 3 casting dice and then gets to add 2 to the number of wands he rolled. He rolls extremely well. He rolls 3 green wands for a total of 5 against the Arcane Knight. Both the Shaman and the Arcane Knight use the spiritual power source, and so the Arcane Knight will ward for 2 plus 1 against the Shaman's magic. Again, I fail to roll any ward symbols, so I fail to negate all but 1 of the Shaman's wands. My Arcane Knight therefore takes 4 life points of damage, and I use the slider to indicate that. Now it's my turn, and I choose to activate my Sorcerer. The first thing that happens on my Sorcerer's turn is the Guardian Hydra gets to make its attack. So the Guardian Hydra uses its fiery magic against the Shaman. The Hydra is able to inflict 2 life points of damage on the Shaman. Now I move the Sorcerer, moving him through the stream, and then cast Inferno against the Shaman. The Shaman is most vulnerable to the Sorcerer's elemental magic, which is why I'm targeting him. Inferno is a 3d plus 2 spell. In total, I score 4 wands against the Shaman. The Shaman can only ward with 1 die against the elemental magic, but Seth is able to roll 1 ward, and so the Shaman suffers 3 life points worth of damage. Now it's Seth's turn, and he chooses to activate his Sorceress. She chooses to cast Healing Warmth on the Shaman. This restores 2 of his life points. My turn, and my Druid decides to cast Breath of Life on my Arcane Knight. This also restores 2 life points to the Arcane Knight. She's back up to 5. She makes her move, and now it's Seth's turn, and he activates his Shadow Weaver. Remember, he's entangled, so he only has 2 movement points. Again, he casts Gloom Strike on the Sorcerer, for a total of 2 wands. Once again, I fail to roll any wards, and so the Sorcerer suffers another 2 life points of damage. It's now my turn, and the only wizard that I have to activate is the Arcane Knight, and she chooses to cast Phantom Blast against the Shaman, for a total of 3 wands. The Shaman wards 2, and so loses 1 life point. This concludes round 2, and we both turn back over all of our wizard turn tokens, and because this is the shifting arena scenario, move the board. Because Seth's Shaman is standing on a hex that happens to be made up of 2 different tiles, Seth gets to choose which adjacent hex that's completely on 1 tile the Shaman will move to. Seth moves him to a whole hex on the tile it's about to shift, so the Shaman will shift with the tile. Notice that as we shift the tiles, the side that is in contact with the central tile remains in contact with the central tile after the shift. It's Seth's turn, and he chooses to activate his Shaman. Because the Shaman is leaving a hex that is adjacent to my Arcane Knight, it triggers her Retribution special ability. She immediately rolls 2d plus 1 against the Shaman, for a total of 2 wands. But the Shaman is able to ward both of those wands. He then gets up close and personal with the Sorcerer. He casts Eagle Talon against the Sorcerer. The spell is 3d plus 2, and Seth rolls a total of 5 wands against the Sorcerer. This is many more wands the Sorcerer will be able to ward, and so the Sorcerer has perished and is removed from the game. Remember that my Sorcerer had cast Guardian Hydra earlier in the game. The Hydra remains on the battlefield as an obstacle, but the Hydra can no longer make its magical attack because the Sorcerer is dead. It's now my turn, and I choose to activate my Druid. The Druid moves out and chooses to cast Tempest against Seth's Shadow Weaver. Tempest is a 2d plus 2 spell. I roll a total of 3 wands against the Shadow Weaver. Seth rolls 1 ward for the Shadow Weaver, and so the Shadow Weaver suffers 2 life points of damage. Now it's Seth's turn, and he chooses to activate his Sorceress. Remember, the Sorceress can choose to cast spells as if she is standing in the hex with her spell totem. As it happens, the spell totem is within range of the Inferno spell, one of the Sorceress's most damaging spells, and so she chooses to cast Inferno through the spell totem against my Druid. Again, incredibly, Seth rolls 3 wands and adds 2 to it for a total of 5 wands against the Druid. And once again, I also roll no wands to defend myself. The Druid is dead and removed from the game. It's now my turn, and the only wizard I have remaining is the Arcane Knight. and she has not been activated this round, so she can still make her move and cast her spell. She's going to use Spectral Rush against the Shaman. It is a 2d plus 3 spell, and I roll a total of 4 wands against the Shaman. Seth wards 2, and so the Shaman loses 2 life points. It's now Seth's turn, and he activates his Shadow Weaver. He can move 2 because he is entangled, but Gloom Strike is the longest range spell of the game, and so he casts that against my Arcane Knight. The Arcane Knight sustains 2 points of damage, and is now down to 3 life points. It's now the end of round 3, and we turn over all of our Wizard turn tokens again, and shift the board. It's now Seth's turn, and he chooses to activate his Shaman and cast Eagle Talon against the Arcane Knight. Again, Seth rolls extremely well for a total of 5 wands against my Arcane Knight. I ward, but still sustain 3 life points of damage, which is enough to slay her. She is removed from the board, and Seth takes the game. We played out this game in a total of 19 minutes. It was a lot of fun, but I'm going to be looking for a rematch.
Incantris is available on ravenkeep.net. Shop now and get it for your table today.